He wore a good jacket and trousers. He had a thin face and blue eyes. He was clean and as old as our father. "Now I'm your prisoner," he said. "What are you going to do with me? Will you take me to the police?" Alice and the others were in the room too by now. They looked at the robber with open mouths. "Will you try to run away?" Alice asked. "No," said the robber. "Then we won't call the police," she said. "We'll wait for our father." The robber sat down in a chair. "I wasn't always a robber," he said. "I had a better job before. I don't want to be a prisoner, but you're very clever, so I'm sorry to be your prisoner. How did you know I was in the house?" We told him, and then we talked for a long time. He told us about his years at sea on ships. It was very exciting. "It's not always nice and exciting," he said. "When the weather's bad, it's not good at sea. But usually, it's good. You see the world, you hear different languages, and you meet many interesting people." "But before you were at sea, what did you do?" asked Dora. "Did you have a different job?" "No," he said. "I went to a good school, Eton." "That was my father's school," H.O. began to say. But Dickie said, "We tried to be robbers too, but our only prisoner was Albert from the house next to us." Then suddenly, our robber put up his hand and told us to be quiet. "What's that noise?" he said. We listened, and we heard a noise from the kitchen. "Someone is trying to open the window," he said. "Give me that gun. There is a robber now, and no mistake about it." "The gun is only for games," I said when I gave it to him. Then we heard a different noise. "Now he's opening the window and climbing inside," said the robber quietly. "You must stay here, children. I'll go down and catch the robber." But Dickie and I wanted to go with him. We waited outside the kitchen door with the others behind us. We were all very excited. "Do you think our robber is going to climb out of the window and run home?" I asked Dickie. "No," said Dickie. "He's friendly. I like him." "I do too," I said. And we were right. Our robber pushed the kitchen door open suddenly and ran in with the gun. "Stop," he called. "Put up your hands." We looked round the door. There was a man in the kitchen. He was quite different from our robber. He had dark hair and a dirty face, and his coat and trousers had holes in them. He was poor. He put up his hands. Okay, boss," he said. "Don't use that gun. I'll be good." "Oswald," our robber said to me, "we must call the police." "No," said the poor robber. "Don't do that. I don't always rob houses, but I have no money, and my children at home are very hungry. I have 2 children, a boy and a girl. What can I do? I can't find a job. But I'll stop being a robber. I'm not very good at it. No, you're not, said our robber. We heard a lot of noise. Oh, don't call the police, said Alice. He has a daughter at home. What will she do without her father when he's in prison? No, said our robber. He must go to prison. I don't think he has a daughter at home. Ask your father to be nice, little girl, said the robber to Alice. Then he won't call the police. You must never come back here again, said Alice. I won't, said the man. And you must not rob again, said Alice. I never will again, he said. Then Alice said to our robber, I think he'll be good now. Don't call the police, please. No, said our robber. That's wrong. We must wait for your father, and then he or I will call the police. But you're a robber too, said H.O. It isn't right. Why will you call the police for him when we didn't call the police for you? Ha! So you're a robber too, said the poor robber. He jumped at our robber and pushed the gun out of his hand. Then he ran over to the window and climbed out of it before anybody could do anything. When he was outside, he turned and said to Alice, I'll give your love to my wife and children, little girl. Then he ran away into the night. We closed the window and went back up to Father's room. This is a very interesting night, said our robber. Yes, said Dickie. We never had a more exciting time. Then we heard a noise. It was Father's key in the front door. Quick, hide, said Alice. You're a nice man. I don't want Father to call the police. I don't want you to go to prison. But Father was in the house by now. Where are you, folks? He called. I've got the... Then he stopped when he saw us. What are you doing, children? Nobody said anything. Then Father said, Folks, were the children bad? No, no, our robber said. I'm not, folks. I'm a robber. I'm the prisoner of these children. They're very good. They tried to save your house when you were out. Then we began to understand. You're playing a game, Dora said. Then our robber said to us, I'm not a robber. I'm an old friend of your father. I came after dinner, and your father went out to get a letter for me from some people. My son is ill, and with this letter I can go and see a good doctor. This doctor will help my son. I waited in your father's room. I wanted to get the letter from your father when he came back. We could not say anything. Our robber told Father about the other robber, and Father said, You had an exciting night. Then he went and got some food from the kitchen, and we ate it there in his room with our fingers, which was most unusual. Father was very happy. When was Father last happy? I thought. When will he be happy again? Chapter 8. Father says that Noel's shoes make a noise on the floor. "Your uncle from India is coming to visit me tonight, children," he said. "I want you to be very quiet. He and I must talk about some business." So we took Noel's shoes off, but there were other noises in the house. Eliza, our cook, makes a lot of noise in the kitchen. "There I was," she told us later. "I'm making dinner and trying to be quick, and I break 2 plates. "Listen to all that noise," the Indian uncle said when he arrived. Father took him into his room. "But he isn't dark," Noel said. "Indians are dark. He's brown from the sun, that's all. He had a white moustache, too." I don't think the dinner was very nice. Our cook is not very good. We sat on the floor near our bedrooms and watched. The Indian uncle came out of Father's room and got something from his coat. It was a box of cigars. "That food wasn't very good," he said. We didn't try to hear, but we did hear him, because he did not talk quietly. We heard him and Father from inside the room too. "It's a good business," Father said. "With a little more money, it will be a very good business." "You're wrong," said the uncle. "What does the business want? New men, not more money." "It's difficult for me to talk about it," Father said sadly. "Let's not talk about it again." After that, they talked about other things, and we went to our playroom. "Now I understand," Noel said. "Father is giving the Indian uncle dinner because he's poor. Father's trying to help him." "Yes," said Alice. "So Father didn't want us to come to dinner because the Indian uncle is poor. He doesn't like other people to know that he's poor." "I'm sorry that the dinner was bad," said Dora. "Yes," I said. "Perhaps the poor Indian doesn't eat meat every day. Then he comes to our house for dinner, and Eliza cooks the meat badly." "Let's ask the poor Indian to come to lunch with us tomorrow," Alice said. "That's a good idea," we all said. "You younger children must go to bed," I said. "We'll wait and talk to the poor Indian. We'll tell you all about it tomorrow." I waited by the back door. Dickie waited up by our bedrooms. "When the uncle is going to leave," I said, "you must make a noise. Then I'll go round the outside of the house. I'll meet him by the front door and talk to him." So, when the poor Indian left, I met him at the front of the house. "Good evening, Uncle," I said. He looked at me. He didn't say anything. Perhaps boys are not always nice to poor people, I thought. "Good evening, Uncle," I said again.
"It's late, young man,"
he said.
"Why are you out of bed?"
"You had dinner with my father," I said. "I know the dinner wasn't good, And I'm sorry, because you're poor, and you want a good dinner. So, will you come and have lunch with us tomorrow, in our playroom? We don't think it's wrong to be poor.
And what's your name?
He asked. Oswald Bastable, I said.
So, Oswald Bastable? Yes, I will come to have lunch with you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Good night to you. I'll come at 1 o'clock. Is that all right?
Yes, I said. Good night. Then I went in and told Dickie and Dora. We mustn't tell Father, I said. He gave the Indian uncle a bad dinner, but we'll give him a good lunch. Father mustn't know that we give people food better than his. The next day, we did tell Eliza. A friend is coming for lunch, we said. Can you make him all the nicest things? She thinks it's Albert from the next house, I said quietly to Dora. At 1 o'clock, the Indian uncle arrived. I helped him to take off his coat, and then I took him up to our playroom. We usually had lunch there.
Hello,
he said to everyone when he came in.
How old are you?
We told him.
And what school do you go to?
We're on holiday these days, said Dora. He was unhappy about that. Then Eliza brought the food. The food was nice. She cooked the meat and the vegetables well. But nobody said anything. What could we say? Oh no, I thought. This is going to be difficult. Nobody will say anything. Then Alice said, Do you want to play lunch, Uncle? And he said,
Play lunch? Yes, let's have a play lunch.
We were happy. It's going to be okay, I thought.
How do we play?
The uncle asked. We showed him. We're fighters in Africa, Alice said. The meat is an animal. We kill the animal, and then we eat it. So we all killed the meat with our knives and things. We cut the meat and cooked it some more on the fire.
This meat is very good,
said the Indian uncle. But his meat was a little black from the fire. After the meat, we had fruit.
What do we do with this?
Asked the uncle. We get it from the trees, Noel said, before we can eat it. The Indian uncle climbed onto a chair and got the fruit from a tree. Then he robbed some more food from a ship. After lunch, I asked him, Was that good? Was it better than last night? And the Indian uncle said,
I never had a better lunch.
He smoked a cigar and told us about all the animals in India. We liked him very much.
Now, I must go,
he said. Alice kicked me under the table. I remembered. Wait, I said. You're poor. We have a little money. Please, will you take this money? And I showed him a sixpence and a threepence.
I'll take the threepence,
he said.
Where did you get the money for the lunch? Does your father give you money?
No, we said. Father doesn't give us money now. We're treasure seekers. We try to find treasure, and sometimes we do find a little. Father is poor, you see, so we try to help him. We told the Indian uncle about Mrs. Leslie and Noel's poems, and the treasure in the hole in the garden, and Lord Tottenham, and the princess. He asked a lot of questions. When he went away, he said,
"Children, thank you very much. I had a very good time. Perhaps one day the poor Indian will ask all of you to dinner."
"Thank you," I said. "And you can buy cheap food for our dinner. We don't always have expensive food." I said this because he was poor. The next day, a large coach drove down the road outside our house. "Do you think it will stop here?" I said. "No, nobody stops here." But the coach did stop at our house. There were a lot of boxes on top, and the driver started to get the boxes down and to bring them into the house. Then somebody's foot and leg began to come out of the coach. "It's the poor Indian," said Noel. "Yes, it is," Dora said. Eliza opened the front door. Then the poor Indian said to Father,
"Dick, I had lunch with your children yesterday. They're nice children. When I look at Dora, I remember your wife, Jane, and young Oswald."
Then he and Father went into Father's room, and we couldn't hear anything more. So we went down and looked at the boxes. There were big ones and small ones. "Perhaps the Indian uncle is coming to stay with us," said Dickie. When they came out of Father's room, we asked him, "Are these boxes yours?"
"No,"
he said.
"They are for you. I told what can I say? A friend about you, and he gave me a lot of things. Some of them are from India. You can have them all."
We took the boxes up to our playroom. Father and the Indian uncle came too. We opened all the boxes. There was a train for Dickie and me, a lot of books, games, pictures, and fruit. Every box had beautiful things in it. Father looked at everything. The uncle said,
"My, friend gave you these, Dick."
And he gave Father a paper knife and a box of cigars. So we found some treasure. These boxes were treasure. The Indian uncle often visited us after that, and he always brought something from his friend. One day he said,
"Do you remember that I wanted you to have dinner with me? You can all come on Christmas Day. Will you come?"
"Yes," we said. "Can we go, Father?"
"Yes," he said. "I'm coming too."
Father was always happy now. Perhaps Uncle's friend gave him some money for his business, because we usually had a little money now. On Christmas Day, we took 2 coaches to the Indian uncle's house. "Where does he live?" Alice asked. "In one of these poor houses?" We went past the poor houses and drove to a very big house near the park. The coaches stopped there. Perhaps he works here, I thought. But no, the house was his. He lived there. He was not a poor Indian. He was very rich. For Christmas, he gave each of us a watch. After lunch, Uncle said,
"Some friends are coming to visit us this afternoon."
And in came Lord Tottenham, Mrs. Leslie, Albert's uncle and Albert, and best of all, Mr. Folks, our robber, and his 2 children. Then Uncle looked at Father, and Father said,
"You tell them."
So Uncle stood up and said,
"Children, this is important. Please listen. I'm going to live in this house. It's very big. Too big for me. I asked your father, and he says that you can all come and live with me. Do you want to do that? I think it will be a happy home for all of us."
So we all went and lived with our Indian uncle. Father's business is better now. Our friends, Mrs. Leslie and the robber, often come to visit. "We were the treasure seekers," Noel said. "We looked for treasure, and we found a good uncle. That's the best treasure."